Okay, so welcome back, everyone. This is the afternoon lecture of week 1, day 1. We are going to continue on with how to do forms in HTML. Once we finish that, we're going to create our own web page. Maybe we'll build a blog together. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. So that's the end of the day goal for the lecture, and then you want to finish, what's the core assignment today? Portfolio content. So that's going to be one of the assignments you'll see here. This is no, actually, registration form is the core assignment you're going to want to complete. Registration form. So you're going to want to finish this by the end of the day. And we'll create something like it. Not so much with forms, but with different H1 or HTML elements. Okay, so forms. What are forms? Forms receive data. They receive input from the user. And here are the different inputs that we can see so far. There's lots of different inputs. Let's go over different types of inputs. Well, it's already labeled here for us. We don't need to write it out.
Josh,
Yes.
quick question. So do we, for the inputs, do we always have to put a form tag first?
No. No.
Okay.
Later on, maybe yes. But for now, no. Okay. For now, no. If you want to use a form, you don't always have to put them in a form tag. It is helpful to see that, and that is a good question. Later on, it may be required, depending on the technologies you're using. Okay, so here is a text input. This takes in simple text. Okay, you can type letters, numbers, and you see here, it's defined typed equals text. That's how we know the type. Now the name here, that's how we can identify this input when we're trying to make this input connect to something else, where maybe you can save the data, or maybe this data would appear somewhere else on the page as you type it in. Okay, so this name identifies the input. When you have type number, then you can use this select these different up down selectors to change the number, or you can type a number yourself, but it'll only take number inputs. Letter inputs won't work. I'm trying to type in a letter input right now and it won't let me. So that's by type number, right? And you name it what the data or the input is related to. Passwords, you have type password, that will make it all black circles. And then we have the name, password. Input type date, that lets us select here from a date, or to input it manually. Okay, May 5th, 3234. No, that's May 9th. Okay, anyways. Here you can also have a color input as well. Let's say your form takes in different colors for maybe you're creating a type of paint for a hardware store that selects a certain color and creates that paint. So you can select the color here. It gives you a different combination of red, green, and blue. We'll go over that more when we talk about CSS and styling, but you can make an input be a color selector as well. We have the radio input. The radio input is defined by type radio. And you can remember that a radio input works this way. And as you can see here, you can only select one. You can remember that it works this way by thinking when you're changing radio stations, you're only on one radio station at a time. Sometimes you're in the middle, those radio stations don't count. But when you're on a good station, you're only on that station, you're not on another one. So this is how you can remember a radio input selects only one out of the available options at a time. Different from a checkbox, which can select multiple options at the same time. Okay, how do we write the labels for them? We write this tag called label, and we say who it's for. And it's gonna know who bold is by this input here, whose value is bold. The label can go before or after the input, depending on if you put it before or after in the HTML is where it will appear on the page as well.
Okay, so quick question. What's the difference between value and ID then?
ID, actually, the value is for passing data. ID is for the label.
Like for, oh, okay, for the label for CSS.
Yes. So my eyes glossed over this. The ID is actually what is making the label attached to this input.
Okay.
The value is for data input and a name as well.
So ID isn't for like JavaScript, like when you connected it to JavaScript?
Yes, as well. We can use the ID for multiple purposes, for JavaScript, for CSS, and for the labels. Okay, let's continue. We also have the text area. This text area, which can be expanded by clicking that bottom right corner. This text area takes in text in large form. You can write paragraphs or messages or whatever. So text area, and we can define how big and how small it is by the rows and the columns. So let's copy this over. Let's see text area in an index.html here. So I'm going to create a new folder actually. So I'm going to say file, open folder. Okay, so I'm going to create my index.html. We say exclamation mark for the template. And we want to copy over this text area in the body. Okay, so now let's view this. So here's our text area. We can expand it on our page. And we can also define the size. Okay, so let me refresh. Here's a 50 by 50. Okay, so you can play with that on your own time. There's also the select drop down. So let me copy this. Let's comment this out. This select drop down lets us choose different options. And the way it works, you have the select as the parent, and you have different options within the select. Each value here represents the value that the label is given. And the name of the option goes within the option tags, as you can see. So that is how a select works. Let's see that on our page. Oh, we already did. Okay, and now we can create a form. Now we can create the visual aspect of a login page, right? Or a registration page, a form that could say, here, enter your name and email and sign up for email offers. You can create a text on a page and a checkbox. We can, well, this isn't just a checkbox. This is a label for the checkbox. And this would be the input type checkbox. And a button. How do we create a button? Input type submit. Site type submit. And using the value here, sign up. Let's copy this. And we can have a button on our page. Here's our button, sign up. You can also do this by saying button as well. And then the value in here. Here's our second sign up button right next to the first. Difference is they have no exclamation mark. Okay. Any questions so far on any of the input types? Nope, no questions. Okay, let's take a poll. Okay. So that let's continue here. Let's talk about divs. Div stands for division. And a division on our page is a section on our page, a place that we've divided out on our page. So when we create divs, the purpose of these divs are to section off areas in our page. Did you see here how these buttons lined up right next to each other when they were at the same sibling level as one another? And they're also at the same level as this select dropdown. What if we put each one in their own div? What would happen in that case? Let's see. So I'll say div, and I'll take the ending here. I'll cut and paste it to a place below. So the input is isolated by this div. I'll take this one as well. Divide up this button. Did I miss anything? And this select. I'm going to put a div around each of the things. Oops, that's a closing. Each of the inputs on our page. Okay. So now let's see what our document looks like. Now they're stacked one on top of another. Why is that? Why is it that some align next to each other and sometimes they stack one on top of another? What's going on behind the scenes there? Well, this goes a little bit into the topic that we'll actually, we'll just dive into it here. Block versus inline, okay? Some elements that you'll type in, some tags are naturally block. What I mean by that is there is a rule called block. And that rule, let's inspect. I'm just going to open up the hood here. You don't have to use this yet. I'm just showing you, proving it to you by showing up on the page. If I use this mouse tool to hover over each element, you'll see there's a blue line that runs across the page. This is for the div that wraps the button. And as you can see, this div takes up the entirety of its parent. Its parent is the body. And the body is the width of the white screen, the window. So an inline element, no, a block element, excuse me. A block element is a block that will span the whole entire page or the whole entire width of its container, in this case, the whole page. An inline element is one that its rule says you don't have to take up the width of the entire container that you're in. Just take up the width of the size that you're using up. So the size of the button itself. So button by itself is an inline element. When you hover over it, when you're not placing it inside a block, you'll see that, so I'm going to just comment out all my divs now. You'll see that they're all in the same line now. Some HTML tags are inline and some block, and you have to just know which ones are which. You have to do a little memorization there. Okay, we'll show you which ones are which, and you'll have to just know them so when you style, you'll know how they'll react to certain rules. So naturally, this button is going to be inline. If I click it, you'll see here on the styles, the rules that define it. I'm looking for that inline rule here. Display inline block. That's what its rule is. That would make it go side by side. And that's a little bit into tomorrow's lesson, okay? About what inline block does. We don't have to go into that now, but just know that naturally some elements will be side by side next to each other. Some tags will be side by side next to each other. Some will stack one on top of another. A div is a block that will take up the entire width of its parent and block off everything within it in its own section. Okay, so let's go back to divs. Now we can create forms and section off areas in our form. For example, this label for this input can have its own section in its own div. We also have this form tag. So you can see here, there's some rules that we have not introduced. This will be something you'll see maybe in a month or so, in a couple months. This is not necessary to know right now, but a form defines what's in it. We have this several children that are div tags that they have inputs with labels related to them. And then a button at the very end. Okay. Let's take another poll here just to find out how well we're understanding the topic so far. Okay. All right, we're doing good. Okay, so validating our HTML. When we create HTML, we may create some errors in that HTML that need to be corrected. And so we can avoid doing that by checking our code. Okay, we'll lay down some rules before we check our code. For example, this would be a bad HTML compared to this, right? We want all of the rules, doc type, HTML, complete, head and body, instead of just putting it straight in HTML, opening and closing tags. How do we validate our code? Our text editor sometimes will help us. It'll underline things when we do them wrong, when we make mistakes. Let's format our code, okay? So now everything is indented properly, and let's copy it and paste it in this website. If you click validate by direct input, paste it in here, and click check, it will tell you if you've made any mistakes. In this case, I haven't made any mistakes. Let's put a mistake in there and see how we can understand how to read an error. So I'm going to create a closing div tag with no opening. Oops. A closing body tag is good enough. No, that's not good enough because it just closes everything there. Just a closing div tag. I'm going to repaste it in here. And we have an error, stray and tag div. What line? From line 17, okay? So you go to your editor, you go to line 17, and you find it there. Here it is where I put it. Okay, and so when you work on your assignments, always use this HTML checker. We're going to use this on your test, and this will be half a point out of that 8 out of 10 if you use this HTML checker. Okay, so you want to always check for errors, and when you check on your test, you're going to want to make sure you have no errors when you show me. Okay, so this is the HTML checker. Let's take a survey on how well we understand how to use this, and why it's necessary. Okay, so do we have any questions about the HTML checker? What is not making sense so far? If anyone has any questions.
Actually got DC'd for a second there, so I think I understood it though.
Okay. Okay. So, I'll tell you which ones are block elements and which ones are not. Okay. So block. We have divs, p tags, header tags, inline. These are just to name a few. We have a tags, inputs. And I think there's another dedicated page on the platform to just this. I'm drawing a blank though on another inline element. Vincent, do you have any input? What's another inline one, if you know at the top of your head? Not to put you on the spot.
No, I posted a link, but we have let's see, spans, strong text area, images, IMGs.
That's important. Images are going to be inline. So if they're going next to that thing that you've just placed them after, and they're not, and the block is not going below it, that's because it's inline, and you have to put it in a div to make it a block, or add a rule to the image to make it not a inline. Go ahead, Vincent. Actually, you know what I'll do is I'll click this link and we'll go to it here. Block level elements. Here we are. P tags, divs.
Yeah, scroll down. There's a little list.
So these are all block. Main, tfoot, ul, video, ol, p tags, divs, articles. These are all different types of tags you can use in HTML. These are inline, so these will appear side by side without indenting on a new line. The labels, the small, span, strong, text area. This is good to know. So keep this in mind whenever you're building HTML. Which ones are going to be naturally inline and which ones are going to be blocks. Okay, this link, this whole page is really helpful. This will have all the HTML tags that you can use to build. So use this as supplementary knowledge in addition to what we're learning on the platform. We'll teach you the most relevant tags to use to build a page. This will show you everything you can possibly use. Okay. So I think it's about that time that we should be building a page together. So what I'll do is I will draw out a wireframe, and then I'll build out that wireframe in our code after. Okay, so let's build something. And I'm going to take out some notes I created here. So just a second. All right, here we are. Okay, so I'm going to have a page. I'm just going to write out a blueprint here and then screenshot it as a reference. Okay, so I want a blog. Okay, so can someone give me a blog topic? Someone want to
weather?
A weather blog? Okay. All right. So if I have a weather blog, what's the title of my website? Any other suggestions?
Yeah, that's a good one.
What weather ninjas? Okay, sure. That's good. Weather ninjas. Okay. A blog about weather. Is that the right spelling for weather? I know there's different. Well,
That's correct.
okay, okay. Whew. All right. So here's our title. Let's do that in pink. Title. And we have a subtitle. Okay, so then let's continue here. I'm going to introduce myself in another subtitle. And let's make a line across the page. So let's assume there's like a boundary here. And a boundary here. The red are comments, they're like invisible. Weather Ninja is a blog about weather. Okay, and I'm also going to draw like a line across the page to differentiate the title from the rest of the site. Okay, and then below I'm going to say about the author. Then I'll have a picture of myself, okay, because I'm the author of this Ninja blog. Or just any random picture. And okay, so we have about the author. This is going to be an image. And this will be another subtitle. Okay, this is just the beginning. We can go on creating a long blueprint, but we'll just create, like, let's say the beginning of our website. All right, about the author, and then a first blog post. Okay, so what's the title of a blog post that we would say for our website?
Hot or not?
Hot or Florida, hot or not? Why did I pick on Florida? Because it's an easy target. Okay. Florida. Is it hot or not? People are like, why is it an easy target? Because I say so. I don't know. I'm just gonna create text here as well. This is the blah 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 text of the post. Anything's easy to pick on, by the way. Anyways, let's continue. All right, so this is the beginning of our blog. Let's use this as a blueprint. How do I take a screenshot while I'm in this drawing mode? I think someone else has to do it for me.
You could do oh, sorry, you're on Apple, aren't you?
Yeah, it's just that I can't drag and do my normal drag. Let's see if I can.
I think if you press Control-Shift-3, you can take
Oh,
a
I got it.
screenshot.
I got it. Control Shift, Command Shift 4. That's what it is.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I have my blueprint saved to my desktop. Okay, so I can exit this and I'll use that as a starting point. All right, so let's create a new folder for this. So I'm going to open a new folder. Open folder. Weather blog. Okay. So I will create my index.html. Spoiler. Here I am. I want to test that everything is working. I'm going to create a title. Ninja weather. And hello world. I can right click the page itself and then click open with live server. Here's our title, Ninja weather up here, top right, and here's hello world. So I'm good to start building. So let's take a look at our blueprint. And drag it up here. And I'll have these side by side next to each other. Okay, so we said that the title was going to be Weather Ninja. So what type of tag should I use for the big title on the page?
The H1
Yep, that's it. Let's go with that. H1. And why is it H1?
is the biggest one. It's the first one.
That's correct.
Most important.
Okay, and what's another unique rule about the H1?
There should be only one of them.
That's correct as well.
It could be only one.
Highlander. All right, so now we want a subtitle. So what's a good subtitle option? Come on, this one's obvious. Let's say it.
H2,
There you go.
H3.
H2, yep. A blog about weather. All right, let's see our changes reflected. Here we are. All right, it's not centered as we have it in our blueprint. We'll have to know some CSS rules to do that. So for now, this is our blog. Weather Ninja's a blog about weather. Okay, what else did we say we were going to create? A line across the page. So if we create an HR tag, now this is our line. It spans across the page. I'll also introduce another type of tag, a BR tag. A BR tag creates a break in the page and indents as well. So now that you see the line is below the subtitle a bit further. Okay, let's create a BR above the header as well, just to make some even spacing. All right, so here's my blog so far. Here's my title and subtitle. Okay, we also said we were going to add another subtitle and an image. And oh, I forgot to add some bio text about me as well. So we'll create that in there as well. Okay, so about the author, that would be another subtitle. So what we want to do is create that subtitle. But before we do that, we want to get in the habit of writing comments as we're building our code. Okay, that's another thing that we're going to be graded on the test. How well are we commenting and dividing areas in our code as we write it? So let's start off by writing a first comment and sectioning off this section on the page as the title and subtitle area. Okay, so right above the H1, I'm going to say this is the title and subtitle area. Okay, and then I'll click elsewhere here. I'll do command/, and this is not going to be viewed on the page. This is just for us developers, so that when we see a page of different tags, our eyes can differentiate the different sections and how they would relate to the sections on the easily visible on the page here. So always want to format document as you're working, and it creates that nice indentation for visibility as well. Okay, so this is going to be a new section. This is going to be like the main content on our page. Actually, we said we were going to work on the bio section, right? So let's do that. This is the About Me section. So we'll create a comment for that, and we'll work below that and create our About Me section. Okay, so what do we want to put in the About Me section? We want to put another subtitle. So we'll make this an H3 and about the author. Let's take a look at our page. It's looking good so far. All right, and below this subtitle, let's create an image tag to put an image of me or somebody, the author. Let's just think of a ninja profile picture. Okay, these are funny. How about a weatherman profile picture? Yeah, this guy's all right. So let's save this image. I'm going to save it in the images folder in the file I'm working on, in the folder I'm working on, excuse me. All right, so here we are. And I'm going to create an images folder to host all the images I would host on my page. Okay, so now I should see this folder here. Let's rename it to weather guy. Let's pull weather guy out of his folder and put it in this tag. So we'll do // click the images folder, click the name of the file, and remember, you don't want to put spaces in your description of files or folders, only underscores or dashes to differentiate words, or you can use dots, but no, actually dots are no good. Dashes or underscores, no spaces. Okay, so let's see if this works. And actually we need to add an alt. So weather guy profile profile picture. Okay, so here is our profile picture. Let's write some text that would fill up the about me section. Okay, so below this image tag, I want to write a p tag that would contain text that would describe the author, right? And I'm reading the chat here, so give me a second. People will kill during bad weather. P tag. People get killed during bad weather. Okay, BR tag is break. Yes, a BR tag is a break tag. Yes. Images are good. So we now we need some description. All right. We need some description. So about me, I was born in, and then some just random text, right? It doesn't matter what we write here. So we want some filler text. So what we want to do now is type in a command that will give us some filler text. So if I say lorem and press enter, a bunch of text shows up here, and it's this, fake Latin. It's just doesn't mean anything. It's just here on the text, as you see here. And if you want to make it even more, you can say lorem and then multiply it by a number. So 5, for example, and you'll multiply that number of text that initially showed up times 5. So here's a description now of the author. We can use this filler text to see what our website would look like once we have the actual text that we know we're going to put inside of it. Okay, so we have this content so far. Let's look at our blueprint, and we have our next blog post that we want to write. So let's do that. That would require another title, but before we move on to the next section, let's take a poll. How well are we understanding everything that we've built so far? And if we have any questions regarding anything I've done, now is the time to ask. There's no rush. There's no perfect question. You don't have to worry about whether your question is good or not, decent or not, smart or not. Okay, so the next section, our first blog post. Blog, so we'll write a comment, blog post section. That's not how you spell blog. Okay. Comment this, and now we know this area is for the blog posts. Is there any reason we're not using div for separate sections? Well, at this point, everything that we've built on everything in our blueprint has been followed so far and we haven't had to use divs. Can you give me a reason, or give me a guess why we haven't had to use divs?
Because you're not doing any CSS.
Good guess. Good guess, but not exactly.
Are you talking in regards to the fact that we're doing like block and inline elements and we're mostly just using?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Divs would make things in line, right? So far, everything that we've entered into our page have been their own block elements, p tags, except for this image, which fits in here nicely. Everything is a block element, so we haven't had to use divs to differentiate areas. Sometimes a page can be too cluttered in divs. Right now, since we're at the very beginning stages, we haven't had to use it. And it's a very simple website. I could easily wrap this in divs, and that would be useful when we're building a site that would need styling CSS, for example, to section off the areas where we want to put things on the page. But so far, we've just been able to section off areas by comments, and we know everything's going to fit in nicely because they are block elements. Okay, so let's just build this a little bit further while we have some time. We'll do another title. Our blog post, we said Florida hot or not. I'm going to think of a different title here. Incoming storms. Stay indoors. And can you show us how to wrap a paragraph in a div really fast? In a really fast way? Like speed as in typing?
Like sometimes people put a paragraph first, right? And then they decide, oh, I need a div.
Okay, so if you realize, okay, actually I need to wrap these sections, all the sections that I've commented in, how can I wrap them in divs? The way you do that is this: you type in div, okay, at the very top, it'll assume you need a closing one. You highlight that closing one, and if you're on a PC, you hold down Control, or if you're on a Mac, you hold down Option, and then you press the down arrow. And then you close off the div. Oh, actually, it took the whole line. Excuse me. So what I'll do is press enter. Now I'll highlight it. Now I'll hold down Option. And so now this area is wrapped in a div. You see how I did that?
Is that the fastest way?
Sure. Is there a faster way? I don't know of one. This is fast enough. Yeah, you just create a div. Okay, enter. You can highlight it. Option, where do you need it to be closed?
Under the paragraph, under the P.
Right, so you just hold down Option and press the down arrow until you get to that location. Now this is wrapped in a div. You can't see it, you don't notice the difference because it doesn't make a difference, but now they're wrapped in divs. Okay, so we have our next section, we have our next header tag, incoming storm, stay indoors. That's our that's our post. We're gonna create a p tag, and we're gonna write some filler text. So we'll say lorem times 10. Let's format this document as we work. Let's see our post. All right, so this is our title and our blog post. Okay, the last thing I want to do here is incorporate some form elements on my page. So at the very bottom, I want to create a section that says, subscribe to our newsletter. All right, so let's do that. I'm going to create a new section. So newsletter subscribe section. Comment this here. And now we'll create a title for this. Let's create a H4 and say, subscribe to our newsletter. And we want to create a form here that will allow for someone to enter in their email and click a button, and that email would be submitted to the user of the web, or the owner of the website. Okay, so what would I need here in order to do that? Type out form, okay. All right, so that's a good way to differentiate an area that's dedicated just to the form. Okay, and what else do we need? It's a good start.
Input type.
Input type. And you see here we have different options when we type in input. Input, and what's the type that we need?
Text.
Okay.
Email, phone number.
All right. And what's this text that we're typing in? What is it that what should we call it?
Email.
Email. Okay. So now we have this form section where we can enter in emails. What else do we want to do? We want to add a label to it, right? We want to add a label to this input so that we can describe what this input does. So how do we do that? Someone tell me. We went over it at the beginning of the lecture. Okay. Do we remember where we found that rule? Input type in forms. So we go to forms. Let's find the label for any of these here. So if we create a label and we say the for, it will create a label for that input. And how do we identify who the label is for? By the ID. So let's go back here and say label for email. And we have to put something in that label. So what should it say? It should say, enter your email. Okay, so far so good. And the last thing we want is a button that will take care of that submit. So how do we do that?
Just button.
Okay. Button,
Yes.
and we'll make it say submit or subscribe. Okay, and this is what we have so far. We've used our H tags, P tags, image tags, some of our form input tags, and we've created a blog. Really simple blog, right? Doesn't have much styling to it, but once we learn how to style something, we can create this page to be more visually appealing. Okay, so let's do one last poll check to see how we're feeling about everything we've introduced so far. And then we'll go ahead and open up for questions. If we don't have any questions, we'll go ahead and close out the lecture. Okay. So we've done the demo for today. I will put each recording related to its topic or the time that we've done it as a blue link that you'll be able to click here and go to that lecture recording. You'll be able to access the playlist of all the recordings by clicking this link here on the calendar, lecture recording. So I'll activate this after this lecture in just a few minutes. Okay, so the end of the day goals are going to be to complete the portfolio content. Again, that's this assignment. Oh, sorry, excuse me. It's the registration form, this assignment here. How would you tackle this? You have form inputs. You need labels for them. You have a radio input here. So you have a blueprint for how you should create your page. Okay, not so difficult, right? Let's see what the chat says here. With forms, will we go into further detail on how they do their functions like signing up for email subscription? Or is that something we should? No. We'll teach you how to make this link up to a database so that you'll make a full functioning app in later stacks. For now, we're just creating the front-facing part so that we can then later connect these form inputs to something that does something with this information. So no, we'll teach you in later stacks. You have to complete just the basics, which is creating the visual aspect first before it does anything. Right? It's like we're creating the frame of the car before we put the engine in it. How to make an entry required. You say here, for example, input type required. And then you can put a star here after this to make it accentuate that required. You can edit that star later on when we figure out how to edit something. We can make this a red star, but this is how you make it required. By typing in that keyword required, you make the form input required. The star itself is separate from it being required. It's just a visual component. Good questions. Okay, so I'll go ahead and open up the rooms if we have no further questions. And good job today, guys. We got past the first day of Web Fundamentals. Tomorrow we'll go into styling. We'll go into styling our page and making it colorful and dynamic and divided in different areas, okay? So let's go ahead and open up the rooms.